Hey y'all fam, welcome back to another reasoning. If this is your first time on the channel, don't forget to drop down below and hit that like button, the notification bell, and the subscribe button to stick with us for future reasonings and uploads. Today's kind of just like a little bit of a ramble today, you guys. I just had something on my mind and I just wanted to jump on here and just drop some reasonings real fast. And I want you guys to actually drop down below and in that comment section, let me know how you guys feel about what I have to say going on today. And just let me know if it resonates with you, how it is in your area, if it's different than I'm experiencing over here, or just what's going on with it. So just let me know. Anyway, why is living on the East Coast so expensive? What's up with that? I know that's like a random statement to make on there, and it's just I mean, most people might think that like living on the East Coast, yeah, it's pretty expensive and whatnot. I don't know, but if you would have asked me 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it doesn't matter. If you would have asked me, is it more expensive to live on the East Coast or the West Coast? I would have thought the West Coast for sure. The West Coast is just, everybody knows like how California is, Washington, Oregon. You guys, we pay some pretty high property taxes there. We pay some pretty high state sales tax, income tax, everything like that, right? And then not to mention that it's very high just cost of living in general. Being on, for example, the requirement of having an automobile, needing to drive on the highways for work, gas costs, commute time, anything like that, right? And then everybody knows little travel hacks and stuff like that is to make sure you pack a lunch and bring some food with you too, right? And then you just have your little snack on the road, and you're not going to be making any runs over to the any fast food restaurants or anything like that. And everybody knows that little life hack there. But even that obviously has just expense built into it, and just time, and just you need to get that done and make your little to-go snack so you can even have it on the road. Just everything like that just goes into it in general is really something that I don't think people, I don't know. It's all, obviously it's all factored, but the difference from the West to the East, everything that goes into what you need to be on the West Coast, I thought that that's the things that made it expensive. But over here on the East Coast, distances are a lot shorter. People don't commute as much, at least not as far as distance. Travel time. Oh my gosh, travel time here is ridiculous. I've never realized that, and I've lived in big cities, so Southern California, NorCal. I've lived in very big cities, and the fact of needing to take 45 minutes to go 9 miles, it's just something I've never experienced. You got gridlock traffic in the Bay Area all the time. You got the freeways locked down all the time, and it still doesn't take 45 minutes to go 9 miles. Then just living in any rural areas, 9 miles takes about 5 minutes, right? Maybe even less if you're speeding, right? It might even take 2 or 3 minutes if you're already in the car and you just hit the throttle and you're driving 9 miles out in the rural area. So just all those things factored in, California having such great distances of travel time, I figured that people would be having expenses that just constitute with travel in general, amongst living expenses and everything else, healthcare expenses, insurance premiums. Again, we already mentioned gas, food costs, utilities, everything like that. And then you have your hobbies on top of that, anything that you're wanting to do, right? It's just really crazy. But again, if you would have asked me, where is it more expensive on the West Coast or the East Coast, I would have said the West Coast. But coming over here on the East Coast now, where you got studio apartments going for $2,000, that's just something that I've experienced that, but I don't know. See, everything just seems to be a little bit more expensive over here on the East. And I don't know if that's just lifestyle inflation that's creeped up over time. I don't know. You guys can drop down below. Let me know in the comment section. We have people over here that are living in family homes for 200-300 years, right? That time, I thought, would allow for price to set in, to have production cost pretty much be matching the purchasing price. But you just don't see that here. It's just as rampant as, let me think. This is the East Coast still, but I heard of a city that just incorporated outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and they only incorporated in like 2016, right? And you can see right here, 1989, a lot older than 2016, right? So if we have states over here that are incorporating in 2016, I was trying to use a West Coast example. Maybe I'll say shout out to Nevada. There's some places in Nevada, and they have some brand new cities as well. All those places, I would assume, would have really high costs, right? Because you're having to truck in supplies, truck in resources. They don't have a firm economy set up at that time. It's a brand new place. They're brand new constructions, brand new towns, brand new everything, right? So you're paying a premium for the newness of it. That's what I would think. But apparently, it's the more established areas. The more established areas are demanding a premium, and those newly developed areas are offering incentives to move in. So that's just something that, again, I had never experienced, I had never considered before. I would have thought that over here on the East Coast, since things are just so old, that the prices would just be a little cheaper. Because, again, they just have that set in the marketplace by now. But just turns out it's not. It turns out that over there on the West Coast, maybe all that high density and the competition actually works to drive prices down. I wonder, because there's not as much density of population over here, Connecticut, New Hampshire areas. There's not as much density as there was, even in the rural areas of the West Coast. The West Coast, there's a lot of people, lot of per capita over there, and maybe that just adds to the competition. Over here on the East Coast, though, it seems that people just kind of travel. They come to Massachusetts, they come to the New York area, but they don't necessarily live there all the time. But those traveling people, in conjunction with those that do live there, I think that might just be spiking the competition. And I think that the spike in the tourist seasons and the drop off in the dead seasons, I think that together is working to kind of keep prices a little bit higher, because it's not the consistent population that you have on the West Coast, where they don't travel, they don't go anywhere, they just basically go to work and back and forth, and that's pretty much it. And in that type of environment, you would have a lot more just standard competition in the general region, versus on the East Coast, where people often move state to state, region to region, and you don't have necessarily that base foundation of a population. So these are just my thoughts. And I'm just throwing that out there because I wanted to see if anybody's lived over here on the East Coast for a period of time and they've seen prices rising, or if they've just always been this high. And just throwing it out there for anybody on the West Coast that's lived there for a period of time. Let me know if you see your prices spiking, or if they've just been consistently high over a period of time. And I'm not even talking about inflation. I'm just talking about living expenses. Because living expenses can be a ratio. And you just look at the ratio where the expenses, let's say, I don't know. I don't want to give percentages, but ratios are percentages, right? So that's always the awkward thing, right? When you say 10%, same thing as 1/10, right? So it's just kind of a difficulty on that one of giving you the ratio. But if you had to say, was it 1/6 as expensive as it is today 30 years ago, or is it 1/3 as expensive today as it was 30 years ago? Just when you give those ratios, you kind of see it. So I'm not talking about general inflation, prices fixing over time. I'm just talking about what was the ratio, earnings to expenses on the East Coast originally, and what was the expenses earning to ratio on the West Coast originally. And I don't know. It doesn't even have to go back that far, honestly. Let's just even say 2012. 2012, what was the earnings to expenses, East Coast to West Coast? And it just seems like there's a lot more expenses on the East Coast than there were on the West Coast, which is just a very unique thing. So anyway, I just wanted to hop on here really fast and just kind of have this little bit of a ramble. But what do you guys think? Again, drop down in that comment section. Let's have a little bit of a conversation, a little bit of a dialogue on this. Where are you guys at? Is it more expensive or less expensive there than when you travel other places and see what the prices comparatively are? Let me know. I'm really interested to see. And on that note, drop down below, hit the like button, subscribe for future reasonings and uploads, and leave a comment and let me know about that. All right, fam. Stick with us for future reasonings. Peace.